Welcome to Spooky Times. And I say that because you're my first guest on the newly christened Spooky Times.
Hey, the honor is mine.
But here's something that we both didn't know. Last time we recorded, you were also technically my last guest on Spooky Ass Shit.
Oh, my heart.
So this is Tristan Sapersky, ladies and gentlemen. You guys know her. She's been on the show before. Not for not for a long time though, because we did 2 episodes together in like 2016, I think.
I think so.
We did the Grim Reaper and we did the Kate and Allie Halloween episode. And then we didn't hear from you for a long time until you joined the family. You were in the Manson family series as multiple characters.
Indeed.
It's a little recording magic. You got to play various characters with your
I think I got to kill myself.
You didn't kill anybody. We had this conversation last time.
No, I know, but I was Sharon Tate and in the family.
Yeah. But you weren't one of the murderers.
No.
In fact, the woman you played is a free woman roaming the land somewhere today under an assumed name, I believe. And her child with Charles Manson is still alive too. But he seems like an alright guy.
Does he know?
He does.
Has he said anything like publicly about that?
Yeah, he says he's not particularly proud of it.
I mean, he can't help it, so like what's he gonna do? So
right. Yeah. So But we're not here to talk about that today. We're going to talk about I don't know what you'd call it, a true story / urban myth that inspired many other stories and several feature films and radio plays and all that kind of stuff. But the reason we're recording this is because last time Tristan and I talked, when I did record what would turn out to be the final episode of Spooky Ass Shit, there was a major audio glitch that the show could not recover from. And I tried several methods to fix it, and it didn't work. So I finally gave up, and I texted Tristan, and she said, well, if you want to record again sometime, I'm up for it. And I was like, well, I need an episode for this week now, so we can't do the one that we recorded all the way back sometime in December, I think it was.
I think so.
So let's just do something new, and we'll get back to that other one when I find the notes that I wrote for it, which I lost in the almost 2 months that have passed since. So this is a very short notice episode, but I think you're going to dig it anyway because it's a very interesting story. So Tristan, I think with your permission, I will just kind of go through the story and then we'll discuss the variations after that.
Please do.
All right. Before I begin, I want to remind everyone to check out the website. It is still spookyas.com. I don't think I'm going to change it. I don't think websites matter all that much. And even if they do, spookytimes.com is already taken. So spookyas is still pretty easy to remember. You can go there, find links to the social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I had changed so many things. Spooky Ass Shit on Instagram. That's still staying the same for now too. And on Facebook, this is different. It's facebook.com/spookytimes with Eric D. And then you can also join the secret closed group, the Spookaroos, so that we can talk about spooky things and creepy things without the weight of public judgment upon us. Okay, so this is a story often referred to as Long at the Fair, or maybe better known as The Lady Vanishes, but these are kind of the same story and kind of separate stories. So let's take you back. The following is allegedly a true story, although you'll find a very hard time finding any facts or names to back it up. It's Paris, and the year is 1889. And the Great Expedition is taking place in the city. And the Great Expedition, from what I gather, is something like the World's Fair, which is just like a big celebration, a big exposition, a big demonstration of all the best that Paris has to offer. and it's very popular. Tourists come from all over the world to see the wonders being exhibited at the Great Expedition. Because of this, all the hotels are pretty much fully booked. An English tourist family arrives, and this is a family of two. It's a mother and a daughter. And they had been traveling a bit, and this was kind of their last stop before going home to England. They were coming home from India, and they said, let's stop in and visit Paris and see the Great Exposition. God damn it.
Exhibition.
I wrote expedition, which is why I said it, and then I couldn't think of the word. They were coming home from India, and they said, why don't we stop in Paris and see the Great Exposition? That's not the word, right? I just said the wrong word?
Exhibition.
Exhibition, yes.
Exhibit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exhibition. They were coming home from India, and so they said, why don't we just stop in Paris and see the Great Exposition? Nailed it. And didn't I?
No.
Exhibition.
You keep saying exposition.
Why don't you tell the story, Tristan? Exhibition.
Weren't they
Exhibition.
coming? Wait, but they were in India, right? And they were coming home, and they decided to stop in Paris to see the Great Exhibition, right?
That's the story, yeah. Thank you. That'll be a fun blooper for everybody to listen to at the end of the show. Okay, so they decide to stop in Paris, and they're going to go to this, let's just call it the fair. They're going to go to the fair.
Superb.
And, but when they get there, they find out, like I said, all the hotels are pretty much booked up and everything, except for the fanciest hotel in Paris. And it's a little pricey, but they're like, you know what? It's the end of the trip. We're here celebrating. This is a big deal for us. It's a mother-daughter bonding kind of thing. Let's go ahead and book these rooms at the hotel. And they happen to have 2 single rooms. So they said, okay, give me one for myself and one for my grown daughter. And we're just going to have a gay old time here in Paris. And the daughter, they first stop in at the mother's room, which was room 342. And the daughter is helping the people bring in the luggage and checking on the mother and helping her settle in. And the room is like super, super fancy. It's got these plum velvet curtains, and it's got this rose-covered wallpaper and a satinwood table and a very ornate, fancy clock and these high-back chairs, very plush, very fancy looking. And they're like, oh, this, at least we're getting our money's worth. This is like a luxury hotel. This is nice. But then the mother says, maybe I'm just tired from the journey, but I don't feel that good. I don't feel very good at all. And she kind of like slumps back onto the bed. And like all of a sudden, she's just like really not doing well. So the daughter says, oh, I better call somebody, but this is Paris and I don't speak French really. But luckily some of these hotel people, they speak English, So she calls down to the hotel manager, and he speaks enough English to understand what's going on. So then he calls the hotel doctor, which they had a doctor like on retainer at this hotel. So he comes in and checks on the ill mother, and he seems very concerned. And he turns to the daughter, and in broken English, he's asking like, what's your story? What's going on here? And she's like, well, we were traveling. We were in India, and then we thought we'd stop back here. We'd stop back in Paris. To go to the fair and everything, and before we go home to England. And the doctor, he turns a whiter shade of pale, as they say. And he says, okay, miss, hold on a moment. And he goes and talks to the hotel manager in French. So the young lady doesn't really understand what they're saying, because like I said, she doesn't speak French. But they're having this very like excited conversation. And then finally the doctor comes back over and he says, mademoiselle, your mother is actually very sick and I can help her, but she needs this like certain medicine. You can get it from this pharmacy, but it's like all the way on the other side of the city. And I don't want to leave your mother because she's so sick. I'm the doctor. I want to be here to look after her and everything. So if you don't mind, I'm going to send you to go and get the medicine. You can take my coach. And she's like, oh, okay, sure, no problem. So she goes down to to the doctor's coach, and the hotel manager had already gone down ahead of her and explained to the coachman what was going on, and said like, yo, you got to bring her to this pharmacy, and you got to get this thing, all in French or whatever. But the girl could see that the manager had explained everything, and so she got in the carriage, and so off they go. But traffic was heavy anyway because of the fair and all. And also, it seemed like the driver didn't really know where he was going. Like, he kept taking turns and then, like, having to double back and turn around and go this other way. And she was very surprised at the incompetence of this guy. And then she goes to the pharmacy and explains what she needs. And the pharmacist says, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. Actually, they told me that you'd be coming. No problem. I'll go get this for you. Hold on just a moment. But he actually takes like a wicked long time getting this medicine together. So he gives it back, but then she goes back in the coach and it's the same thing. Like, they're twisting and turning around roads, and she's like, what? Where are we going? What's going on here? Finally, they get back to the hotel, but this like journey that she's been on has taken 4 hours. So she jumps out of the carriage and she goes to the hotel manager and she says, well, how's my mother? I got the medicine here, and how's she doing? And the hotel manager says, what are you talking about? What do you mean your mother? How would I know how your mother is? And she's like, well, haven't you seen her? And the manager's like, no, I haven't. What are you talking about? And she's like, come on, you didn't check on my mom or anything? And, and he's like, no, he's like, Mademoiselle, I don't know what you're talking about. You arrived here alone. How would I know your mother? And she's like, what? And so she's like, what are you talking about? Me and my mom checked in. Look, right here in your registry. And she points down to the registry book, and she sees where she has signed in. And right above her should be her mother's name. But her mother's name is not listed there. It is the name of a stranger. And she says, but this can't be. Like, it was me and my mom. We checked in together. It was just like 6 hours ago. You brought her up to room 342. She's in room 342. We got to go up there. I got her medicine for her. The doctor's waiting. And I don't know what's going on down here. And he says, Mademoiselle, I don't know what you're talking about. 342, that room has been rented, but it was rented to a French family with children. Your mother's not up there. You had a room by yourself. And she said, no, I had my mother's room. We're going up there. You're going to take me up there. You're going to open that door right now. There's some kind of funny business going on. So they go up there. But when they open the door, there's nobody in the room, but all the curtains are gone. They're not the plush velvet curtains. The wallpaper is completely different. The furniture is completely different. None of that fancy stuff that was in there earlier is there. And there is luggage in the room, but it's not her mother's luggage. It's the luggage that seems to belong to a young family. And so the girl is freaking out and saying, where is my mother? And they're all saying, no, you've been here alone, ma'am. You went out to the fair and you came back, and there was no one else here. She runs into the hotel doctor in the lobby and she says, look, I have the medicine that you sent me to get. So you must know where my mother is. And I don't, these people are acting like I'm crazy. And the doctor says, I've never met you before in my life, madam. So eventually she runs over to the English embassy and she tries to explain to them what's going on. And they all think she's crazy too. So they send her back to England, where she spends the rest of her life in an insane asylum. So that's the basic story, Tristan.
I have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts.
Well, so that in that particular version, now we've come across different versions of this story, researching, even though it was, again, very limited time that we spent researching this particular episode. Usually we spend like a full week investigating. Today we did it in a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
But I should point out that the idea for this episode came from a book that I've referenced many, many times on this show, a book that I use when I need some inspiration and I need a story to talk about, and that is the Reader's Digest book, Strange Stories, Amazing Facts, which is a book that I've had since I was a child. And it's just full of wonderful little mystery stories like this one. And I used this story in high school in my own way, which I'll talk about later on. Remind me. But anyway, so this is a story that I've been familiar with for quite some time. And I always found it very interesting. Now, the book explains that possibly the reason that the mother disappeared in this particular version of the story is that she may have had the plague. She may have picked up the plague while they were in India, and that's why they needed, the mother, she was going to die, basically. But that they kind of covered it up to protect the fair so that they wouldn't shut down all the festivities because there was rumors of plague in town. So they got rid of the mother and they completely redid the room and got rid of all the germs and everything in time to kind of cover everything up and make it basically gaslighting this daughter into believing that she was crazy, or at least getting the world to believe that she was crazy. So what do you think about that theory, Tristan?
Well, I don't know the kind of timeline of bubonic plague, but was it rampant in India in 1889?
There was like scarlet fever and like those kinds of things going around. Secret Garden was based on that too, right?
What?
Yeah, the girl's parents.
They were sick and they died. I don't know that it was plague.
Yeah, but it was India.
It was India, and they got sick and died.
Yeah, if you go
maybe like typhoid or malaria.
Yeah, but if you go colonizing, you're bound to catch some strange diseases that your body's not used to.
I think the story makes a really good commentary on what you said, gaslighting. It takes some, we've all been in a situation where the thing that we know to be true is said by others that it cannot be true. And it's cognitive dissonance, and it's so uncomfortable, and you're so confused and angry and upset, but you can't be that way because that doesn't get your situations resolved. So I think that this story makes a brilliant commentary on how people, given the context of the time anyway, on the view of like women's hysteria. And because, pretend you're in that situation, pretend you're a woman, and it's 1889.
I do all the time. Sorry.
And it's 1889, and you're told that, like, your mother, that no, you didn't come with your mother, you came by yourself, but you know that that's not right. But you can't freak out because then people will be like, oh, you're a crazy woman, which apparently is what happened to this lady anyway. I think that is a really interesting thing. I think this story is so ubiquitous and has been adapted again and again and again and again because that idea is so horrifying that, like, your reality is not correct.
Yeah.
And the thing you know to be true actually is not. And you're mistaken about the circumstances of your life, and you didn't know until now. Like, is that true? Is that not? And then you start to doubt yourself. I think that's so universally horrifying and upsetting to people that this story's been adapted a million billion ways. I think there was a version of it in that Scary Stories to Read in the Dark book series. I think there was a version of this in there.
Yeah.
That's where I first kind of, I didn't know about the urban legend. I didn't know about any of the woman in Paris or anything like that. There is a version. I think there is a story in those books about a person who goes to a hotel room, checks in, does her day, comes back, and like the room is gone and her bags are gone, and they're like, "No, we've never seen you before. What are you talking about?" It's upsetting and it's scary. That's where I first heard about it, and I think I was in like first grade.
Well, like I said, I knew this story from that book that I referenced earlier that I had when I was a child. And the story of how I used it in high school, I was in an English class and we had to write a story for some reason. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use this as like the basis of my story. And so I did. and I thought it was pretty good. And like I didn't copy it directly from the book, but basically the plot was the same, so I might as well have copied it. And I turned it in, and there was a kid on my bus who was in the same class as me, and he was really kind of a dirtbag and like not very bright, but he was a kid I grew up with, so he was like still like my friend, kind of,
In that way.
Yeah, like if you know each other since you're 5, like you're gonna be kind of friends anyway. So anyway, but my point is, there's no way he wrote a better paper than me. No way. We were on the bus, a couple days later, and I was like, "Hey, what'd you get on your paper?" And he got like an A, and he was like very proud of it. And like I got like a C or something, with like very little explanation as to why. And I was like, "Oh man." But looking back, I think it's because I used this like super well-known story that I didn't realize was a super well-known story. But I wasn't trying to pull a fast one. Like I didn't think I was like, copying a really well-known story or anything. I thought I was just using a loose inspiration from a little-known story, But anyway.
There was even a version in a Garfield comic. And not a version of a woman in a hotel room, the version of what is the seed of the story. Your reality's incorrect, and you only found out now. Like there's a Garfield comic where he wakes up and John is gone and Odie is gone and there's cobwebs everywhere and he's alone. And it's horrifying. Like it has no business being in a Garfield comic, and that it's
we actually did an episode about that.
Yeah, that one?
It was about Garfield's Halloween special, but then we also talked about he had some dark stuff going on in those strips and those books and stuff. But yeah, that was way back in the day too. But yeah, let's talk about some of these adaptations. Mary's parents died of cholera, by the way, in The Secret Garden.
Okay.
Cholera. I forgot. I should have known. I played one of them once upon a time. Oh well. The first official adaptation that I'm aware of is a book called The Wheel Spins. And this is kind of like a loose adaptation because it actually takes place on a train and there's like a love interest and stuff. And it's like this mystery about this old English woman that goes missing. And this was transformed a couple of years later into an Alfred Hitchcock movie called The Lady Vanishes. And this is where it really became like a love story and all that. And a lot of people say this is one of his best films, at least one of his best like British made films. And it's so popular that it's been that film itself has been remade twice since 1938. There was a 1979 version and even a 2013 version. But there was another movie that came out in 1950, which follows basically the plot of the story that I read earlier, except of course it's more of a love story, and there's always got to be some kind of romance subplot, right? When Hollywood gets their hands on things. Always. So this one is called So Long at the Fair, and allegedly it's based on a book by the same name, but when I looked up the book, all I could find was a book written in like 2013 that had nothing to do with this whole story. So I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, so lots of strange adaptations, including the one that I wrote in high school. I think that
I can't believe you thought that was gonna. I love that idea that like one time I did a similar thing with a Shel Silverstein poem because I thought like, well, no one's gonna know this.
Yeah.
No, everyone knows that.
yeah. Don't. I
love it.
And like I said, I didn't even really think I was like ripping something off. Like, I guess now it sounds like that, and I probably was, but that wasn't my intention, and that's not how I thought of it at the time.
Yeah.
That's all I can say in my defense, I guess. My defense of 13 or 14-year-old me. So let's see. So this idea of your reality being questioned, I think this is a theme that comes to many stories, and even just in pop culture now. I think of like the Mandela effect. which is like maybe micro versions of this kind of thing. And there is one that's been bugging me. I don't even know if I mentioned this on the show before or not. And Tristan, I know you're a little bit younger than me, so you might not even know. You might not even have this as a thing. Well, the first one was.
Try me.
The first one. This isn't the one I was just talking about, but the first one that got me, because like Berenstain.
Oh.
I was like, I don't know, whatever their name is. I call them Bear. I'm like, I don't know what I did call them. I don't know.
So I call them the Berenstain Bears because I certainly never called them the Berenstein Bears.
Yeah, I don't know. That one, see, like that's one that I was like, I don't care. Like, whatever.
I was sure. I was positive.
But one that got me was Interview with the Vampire instead of Interview with a Vampire.
I remember it being the. I can see the. I can like
I
see
always
the
said
cover
a
in my
vampire.
head.
So that was one that got me like a little bit, but I was like, I can see where I could make that mistake though, no big deal. But there's one that's been driving me crazy, and it's so specific. I thought.
Tell me it's not that Shaq movie.
What's that?
Not that Shaq movie. Because I recall that, and that's.
No. This is, like I said, you're a little younger than me, so maybe this won't mean anything to you, but are you familiar with the song? What's it called? It goes, if you leave me now, you take away
the greatest. It's by Chicago.
Yeah.
Ooh, no, baby, please don't go. Yeah.
Well, first part of that, which I'll play right now. I remember that being used in either an 80s or early 90s medical or like crime show. And I even feel like I remember like a helicopter noise at some point, like landing.
Oh, I don't know. I just know the song.
And I'm like sitting there trying to figure out what show it was. And I was like, oh, maybe it was St. Elsewhere. But no, I listened to St. Elsewhere theme, sounds nothing like it. I was like, maybe it was Doogie Howser. No, I remember that song. It didn't sound like that. And I'm going through I'm like, maybe it was Emergency. No, because that show was even before my time, but my brother used to watch the reruns. Nope. And then I was like, China Beach, but no, I remember China Beach specifically having Reflections as their theme song. So it was really bothering me. And then I went online and I saw that there were like group discussions on Reddit about this very thing. And it's not just that like people were saying like, because I think I typed in what TV show used, the beginning of that song. And like all these things came up of people asking, and people were saying not just like similar things, not just saying like, oh, I remember it being like on a show in the 80s.
Yeah.
They were saying like, I remember this being on a medical show, like St. Elsewhere, like something like that. Yeah. And it was like so specific. And everyone's saying, no, you're thinking of this. And they give some example of like Hill Street Blues or something where it doesn't sound anything like it really. And it's like, no. So I'm not saying this is a perfect, one for one, but I think that maybe now where we might be a little more skeptical of someone saying that like, oh, they changed over the whole hotel room and covered up this whole thing. But we have more like modern kind of theories about it. Like maybe we slipped into a parallel universe or, this computer scenario that we're all just part of a simulation, and sometimes things go a little bonkers. And that's why some of us remember things one way and some of us remember it a different way. So I think the legend lives on is what I'm trying to say. So getting back to this story, what do you think of the story that I read? Do you think there's any way that there's any truth to it, or do you think it's just an urban myth? What do you think?
So I think every urban myth begins with a seed of truth. So I don't think that like I don't think that a woman and her daughter, checked into a hotel room and the woman was, the daughter went about her day and the woman was just like absconded with and everyone denied it happening. I could see a world where the mom was sick, and let's say perhaps the daughter was told, like, you guys need to leave right now. And then they were bribed or something, or like put under a gag order to say, like, no, we were never at this hotel, to preserve the hotel's revenue. I could see a world where that happened, but I don't think the events of that story took place. I think that story has a seed in truth somewhere that has been dramatized to be very upsetting and dramatic and exciting and horrifying, to be more interesting. Because it's not very interesting to say that someone was bribed to be quiet, that they went to a hotel. It probably has a basis in some kind of truth at some point.
Well,
it seems really bizarre to kind of just come up with all those things and have them not be based in some kind of truth, but I don't think that happened.
Yeah. Well, you and I were talking before, and we have learned some bitter truths through this COVID and the vaccine rollout, that people will put commerce ahead of people's health.
Yep.
So there is that.
Absolutely. I wouldn't put it past somebody to be like, hey, you're sick. Get out of my hotel. We will not help you. You need to leave.
I wouldn't be surprised even if, and I'm not saying that this really happened exactly the way they laid it out, or that it happened at this time, or that the story is true like this. But if someone did die of some catching disease, that the hotel might cover it up, and just be like, oh, maybe not say that they were never there, but, say they died of, some kind of, freak accident. They slipped in the shower or something like that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised
like a heart
by something
attack
like that
or
either. Yeah.
Something non-contagious.
Yeah. Well, these are all cheery things to think about in this day and age when we're all trying to discover what the new normal will be. Another thing we were talking about before we started recording.
Yeah.
Tristan and I have both been vaccinated at the first dose anyway, and we're both scheduled for our second doses this month. So who knows? Tristan might be the first in-person interview.
Oh my God.
In
so many firsts in life.
Yeah, just because she happens to luck out, and we both work in fields that require us to work with people directly, and always. What's that?
I work in an orthodontics office. We're in people's mouths constantly.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to say. With social distancing being something that we can't do a lot of times in our jobs, so it's the one time that working in a human service field has had a benefit, really.
Accurate.
That's that you get in line for your vaccine, so that's good. So I think that we would both encourage all of you to go and get the vaccine. I know a lot of people are kind of iffy about it, but the truth is, if you follow the science, yes, there have been some people that have had bad reactions to it, but so far, nobody who's had an allergic reaction has died from it. They've all been okay. And also, it's something like out of 1 million people, 2 had an allergic reaction. It's something like astronomical like that, because they've given this vaccine to millions of people now. The other thing is people have questions about how did this vaccine come out so fast? Well, first of all, the people who work on these kinds of vaccines, it's not like they just start once they hear that there's this illness out there. They've been working on this stuff forever for a scenario like this. So then when it becomes a problem that the whole world is facing and all of the world's best scientific minds are working on it and having all this money thrown at it, apparently you can get things done pretty damn quick.
It's amazing how quickly something can get done when everybody stops what they're doing and focuses on the problem.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder the other things that we could solve if we just work in this manner all the time, sharing this information and not, trying to divide ourselves by, country or religion or anything like that. And as far as deaths caused by the vaccine, there do seem to be some cases where it seems like the vaccine might have triggered something in very rare individuals. Now, of course, obviously, that's very unfortunate for the families involved with those people. And this is my number one concern about the vaccine, because I'm concerned that I feel like the vaccine is probably safe, but I will have some kind of freak reaction to it. So even I do get nervous about it. But on the other hand, I also have all the underlying conditions that you're not supposed to have if you get COVID. So for me, the risk is just as great. Actually, let me restate that. The risk is much greater if I don't get the vaccine. So that's how I look at it. And they say that we need at least 80% of the world to be vaccinated to develop this herd immunity that they're always talking about. So personally, I encourage you to go get the vaccine.
I'm a big fan of vaccines, personally. I think any reaction I could possibly have to the COVID vaccine is going to be better than if I got COVID. I'll take an allergic reaction. I will take a reaction, I got a reaction to the first shot, so I'm not like allergic, but like flu-like stuff. And I'll take that for the second one, because that beats getting COVID to me. More than 100 million people have been vaccinated at this point. I just checked right now. And I also believe in science. I think it's pretty irresponsible and selfish to not get it if you don't have a medical bar for why you should not have it. Otherwise, I think it's pretty selfish. That's a polarizing view, but feel free to cut that.
No, people are going to have their own thoughts on everything. So yeah, I think the bottom line is both of us say, go get the vaccine for whatever that might mean to you. We've both done it. No major side effects.
I was just exhausted.
Yeah.
I was wiped.
All right. Well, let's finish up this episode, and then you and I can talk vaccines for the rest of the night.
Yes.
So, Tristan, thank you for being here once again.
Wait,
I'm sorry, the last episode. Yeah.
Wait, let's talk about just some, like, not direct adaptations, but like extrapolated adaptations. Current day, like what if people wanted like a flavor of this story? Like, I feel like Memento is sort of a flavor of it. I feel like kind of Black Swan. Like,
yeah, a little
certainly
bit.
Certainly the movie Gaslight.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Gaslight in general, that's a term that's become very popular. I don't exactly know why lately, but I feel like most people don't even know like that was a movie and that's where that came from.
So, I mean, I think it was a play. And then it was a movie. Featuring like a 19-year-old Angela Lansbury who was nominated for an Oscar for that film.
There you go.
And the term gaslight comes from, it's a husband who is gaslighting his wife into thinking like that she's crazy, basically, because he lights the lamp downstairs or upstairs from their apartment or something, and that is a signal to someone, and it's a literal gaslight.
Yeah.
And when it's on, that means something. And she's like, "Hey, I know this," and he's like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Maybe you should lay down." And that's where that term comes from. It's from a literal gaslight. And then what he does with it in the story is he manipulates her into thinking that her reality is incorrect. So that's where that term comes from.
And anyone who's been in a bad relationship can attest that happens all the time. And people mislead you and try to make you think you're crazy when you know damn well what was going on all along. But enough about me and my problems.
Very toxic and abusive anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a really common, again, not that direct adaptation, but I feel like that theme I feel like Darren Aronofsky does a lot of it, like David Lynch maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think too much about it, to be honest with you. I'd have to think a little longer and harder, I guess.
Well, because I think there's a reason that the story has lasted this long, and it's because that theme is horrifying, kind of universally. And you don't have to do a whole lot with a story to make it to make it upsetting if it revolves around that. Ooh, Moon. That movie, Sam Rockwell. Kind of any movie where someone realizes that they're Truman Show. Kind of.
She's got a whole bunch. Kind of, yeah, kind of.
Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're making a very broad definition
broad.
of just
very,
not
broad.
reality, but sure.
Very broad.
All right, Tristan, I love you, but I want to end the show now.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here again.
Me.
Sorry the last episode didn't work out so well, but we'll try again sometime.
Yeah, I could talk Titanic all day.
Yeah, so you guys, please remember to share the show, like the show, subscribe to the show, and of course, if you could leave a kindly worded review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to listen. And don't forget to join us on Facebook, facebook.com/SpookyTimes with Eric D, or to find us on Instagram @SpookyAssShit. And once again, Tristan, thank you.
Thank you.
For the rest of you, until next time, don't be afraid.
Spooky Times is a Witchfinder production.
All right. Now you can talk about whatever you want to talk about.